My very special guest on Delhi Dialogue, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, is joining us right here on the show. Thank you very much for being with us. You're back from polls. You do not look fatigued at all. You've been
exhausted.
You've been active on social media, all of that. But I'm going to begin with the uncomfortable question. Opinion poll after opinion poll is giving NDA a clear majority or in a handshake distance of that magical 272 mark. I do not expect the Congress party to endorse those figures. I expect you to denounce them. I expect you to say opinion poll is not a reflection of a reality on the ground, which is much better than perception. But let me ask you a candid question to begin with. How tough is the battle on the ground?
Now look, it's tough, and each constituency has its own story. So my own experience was perhaps different from that of another Congress candidate somewhere else. But on the opinion polls, let me start off by saying that we are fortunate to be living in a democracy where voters decide election results and not pollsters. Because the pollsters aren't reaching a lot of typical Congress voters. I can tell you that they're not reaching the Istriwala, they're not reaching the fisherwoman, they're not reaching the vegetable market seller, they're not reaching the nurse, they're not reaching the auto rickshaw driver. These are people who disproportionately tend to vote for the Congress, and they are not being touched or tapped by these polls. Now, if you'll be very honest about it, I'll say that clearly there is a broad indication amongst the polls that the BJP is doing better than last time and we're doing worse than last time. But the kinds of absolute numbers that are being flung about, I think, first of all, there's no basis for them. And secondly, they miss too much of the political and social reality of our country to be a reliable index. So my honest view is we should now look forward to seeing the results on the 16th of May and stop worrying about the polls.
Okay, I'm not going to talk about the absolute numbers, but if you go into details, the larger, broad political contours of these polls are that this is going to be the BJP's best performance and the Congress's worst. You do not think this is going to be the worst show by your party?
Not necessarily. We did pretty badly in 99, if I remember, 114, I think it was. I think we'll do better than that number. I think we'll do better than that.
You'll be better than 114. You've come back from a poll that hasn't stopped you from participating in the poll exercise. You're now out campaigning in Mumbai and then in Chennai and henceforth. Do you concede there is a Modi wave?
Well, look, in the south there isn't. I've just been last 6 weeks in Kerala, and I can assure you there isn't even a Modi ripple, let alone a wave. Indeed, one of the disturbing things about this so-called Modi wave perception is how strongly it's confined to the Hindi-speaking heartland and the extent to which our national media's own bias in this regard suggests that our nation's imagination is being fractured a bit. What we're talking about is somebody who has certainly managed through an extremely adroit marketing campaign to impose himself and his image on the consciousness of North India and of the North Indian media. It so happens that the national media is headquartered in the north, and that is therefore reflected all the more. I have a problem, I think they have a problem, frankly, that I think they believe their own press releases. When Mr. Modi starts digesting his own publicity to the point of believing in it himself, he may be in for a very rude shock on the 16th of May.
I'll ask you a counter question on that. We all thought the BJP is going to go into a disarray because Advani was sulking. There was a problem with senior leadership. There was a problem with ticket distribution. The Election Commission pulled up Amit Shah. There was a problem with Modi's marriage. It became a controversy. But nothing seems to be stopping that juggernaut. What do you then attribute this to?
Well, perception is, after all, ultimately about not reality, but a shared illusion. That's what a perception is. And all of you have managed to persuade yourselves that this is the reality. Look, I'm not saying that you may not turn out to be right. I just think the balance of possibility is against this perception turning out to be right. I have a feeling that the expectations have been pitched at such a hysterically high level that when the numbers are in, Mr. Modi is in for a rude shock, and those who have managed to project him as this larger-than-life, unstoppable juggernaut, as you put it, may find that the wheels have come off the chariot.
So you believe this is a very well thought out media strategy, a very well thought out media campaign backed by, like your Congress party men have been saying, big business?
Huge amount of money. And this is there throughout the country. They were pumping money in as if it was being printed there. It's just extraordinary. We're seeing this throughout the country. We're seeing it on TV. We're seeing it on social media. We're seeing it in newspapers. And this kind of publicity machine can only be funded by a lot of people with a lot of money riding on the outcome. And I think that is a sobering realization for all of us in our democracy, whether we want to see our allegiances being bought in this way.
Is the Congress finding it tough to finance these elections?
Fortunately, I have nothing to do with that part of the Congress, but I can tell you that the Congress party has obviously had a long-standing, deeply sort of regarded place in this society and in this economy, and that I'm sure the Congress party has its own backers. Clearly, they may be of a different stripe or a different bottom line from those who are at the moment spending so lavishly on Mr. Modi. But I think even if we had the money, we would spend it more responsibly.
You know, polls after polls have also pitted your vice president against Narendra Modi. Fortunately or unfortunately, he pales in comparison. You look at the numbers, they are 2:1, they are 3:1 at times. He's done very well in Kerala and Karnataka for one, but at an overall level. What is it that Rahul Gandhi hasn't got going for him? Because his worst critics will turn around and tell you he's a well-intended man.
First of all, we're not in a presidential system. We are in a parliamentary system. We're about electing 543 MPs who will then decide who the Prime Minister should be. Rahul Gandhi's style of leadership is not about projecting himself. It's about projecting the team, empowering his colleagues and leading a team to success. Narendra Modi has an interest in this presidential kind of projection because his approach is all about one man having all the answers. This sort of conquering hero on a white stallion is going to charge in and wave this magic wand and make all our problems disappear. And that kind of facile solution is one that anybody who understands 10% of the complex realities of India knows cannot work. Yet it is the plausible message that is being sold, and therefore Rahul Gandhi, who doesn't try and play that game, may suffer by comparison. But having known Rahul Gandhi at reasonably close quarters, I can tell you that he represents the kind of leadership that the 21st century demands, which is an empowering leadership, the kind of leadership that lets people get on with their work, gives them general guidance, that prefers to listen rather than to say, I have all the answers.
You know, I'm going to ask you a question that seems to be getting some kind of a center stage in Indian politics. We were speaking to some people in the BJP. Let me quote Arun Shourie here. He said to me in an interaction that India is slowly moving to a presidential form of government where the Prime Minister has to be supreme, where the Prime Minister has to call the shots, and it's only fair that people begin to choose their candidates. If I were to go by that logic, do you believe the Congress party should have declared Rahul Gandhi as their Prime Ministerial candidate?
Because we're not in that system yet. I mean, many people know that I've been an advocate of the presidential system of government, not because of, and this is well predating my consciousness of the existence of Mr. Modi, but purely because I feel that our parliamentary system has a number of inbuilt inefficiencies, which sadly have come into stark relief with the conduct of Parliament in recent years. But having said that, we're not in that system. And therefore, for the Congress to name a candidate would have been to play the BJP's game. What the BJP wanted was to have a particular straw man to throw their darts at or to throw their pellets at. And we didn't have to play their game for them. You know, we will do things our way, and indeed, when the time comes, we will find a Prime Minister if we are asked to form the government. I don't think that we need to announce in advance, just as our system doesn't require us to announce in advance. The President in our system has the obligation to judge which individual is most likely to be able to command the confidence of a majority of the House, of the Lok Sabha.
Right.
Now, he may turn to, as he did, for example, let's take the story of the previous President in 2004. Turned to Sonia Gandhi and said, you are the leader of the party that is most likely to form a government. Would you like to be Prime Minister? And she came to him and said, sorry, sir, I will not be it. Here is the person I'm suggesting. Tomorrow, he may turn to Rahul Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi may say, yes, it's me. He may turn to Sonia Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi may say, no, it's Rahul Gandhi. The two of them might do anything else. I mean,
what is the possibility of Rahul Gandhi turning around saying it's not me, it's somebody else? How high is the possibility? Because this has been spoken many a times, and I want you to be candid here. How high is the possibility that whenever the time comes, be it 2014 or be it 5 years down the line, Rahul Gandhi will eventually find his own Manmohan Singh?
No, I don't think so. But first of all, I think the only reason that Sonia Gandhi felt that she should step aside was because of her foreign birth and her foreign origin and the enormous unseemly fuss that was being made by the opposition, Sushma Swaraj wanting to shave her head and all of this drama, which I think she felt would have been a distraction from the responsibility of solving the real problems of the country. Rahul Gandhi suffers from no such handicap. He's born here. He is considered by everybody as Indian. He speaks Hindi like any other Delhiwala. His English is without the trace of any accent other than one that we can recognize in this country. I mean, he is in every single respect fully qualified in the eyes of... I don't think Sushma Swaraj is going to get a new sartorial style or a new tonsorial style because of Rahul Gandhi becoming Prime Minister.
For sure.
So my own view is that at this stage, that question is quite irrelevant. I think that right now, we are leading in a campaign. We have two co-chairmen, Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi. And if and when the campaign is won and the President turns to us, he is normally duty-bound to first ask the President of the Congress Party whether she would like to suggest who on her behalf or on the party's behalf would like to take on the mantle of assembling a majority. My guess is that would be Rahul Gandhi.
You know, because we are talking about your party president, I have a very valid question to ask you. The entire campaign, when it took off, Har Haath Shakti, Har Haath Tarakki, had Rahul Gandhi plastered all over.
With people around him.
That's right, with people around him.
We don't have the equivalent of the Modi posters where all you have is Modi.
There were plenty of people around him from all walks of life. So there was a woman, there was a carpenter, there was an auto driver, everybody like that. So it started off
people visibly of different shades of color, different background, different features, different colors of skin, etc.
So, you know, all of that was there. It started off with him. He is the head of your campaign committee. Yet, 4 phases later, Sonia Gandhi has had to make a very aggressive comeback. Yesterday, she addressed the nation through that Congress YouTube channel. Why is that so?
Well, they're co-chairman. From the very beginning, it was always announced that the campaign would have 2 leaders. And it's simply that they divided themselves. And for example, in speaking of my own state of Kerala, Sonia Gandhi went to 3 constituencies, Rahul Gandhi went to 3 other constituencies. That's simply the way in which...
But isn't she coming back and taking charge because it seems to be slipping away? And no, she's the more seasoned of the two. She's the more acceptable of the two.
At no stage did she take a back seat. She has been out there in the front all along. As has Rahul, they've simply got a vast country to cover, so they went in 2 different directions.
There are these 2 books that have been printed, one by Sanjay Barua and one by P.C. Parekh. Both books seem to talk about weak leadership at the government. As somebody who's been a part of the government, do you believe Congress at one level is paying a price for weak leadership, not in the party, but in the government?
I don't agree. First of all, I haven't read the second book, but the Baru book I have read. And
that is quick.
There is a fundamental contradiction at the heart of that book, which is that he served the government in the first 4 years of UPA 1, 2004 to 8, and he describes those as absolutely golden years where the Prime Minister could practically do no wrong, and it seems to have been a resounding success. And then the criticisms concern a period in which he was not in government, and these are frankly recycled comments we've seen from all sorts of places from the outsiders, which have been grafted onto a seeming insider's account. But if you read the account, the insider's account is entirely positive and the outsider's criticisms are different. So there is a problem here because, as the adage goes, you know, where you stand depends on where you sit.
Yes.
And it seems that when he was sitting next to the Prime Minister or behind the Prime Minister could do no wrong. And suddenly he's sitting somewhere outside in the shadows and the Prime Minister has failed. Number 2, he also makes a very telling observation that the very qualities that were seen as virtues in the Prime Minister in UPA 1 were perceived in his view as liabilities in UPA 2. Who's doing the perceiving? Who's seeing it this way? How can suddenly a quality described as self-effacement suddenly become subservience? How can calmness suddenly be described as passivity? I mean, these are the same qualities. The Prime Minister has been consistent throughout. The basic division within the Congress party was 2004, Sonia Gandhi won a mandate. Manmohan Singh didn't. So she had the political power, and Manmohan Singh was entrusted with the governmental authority. And as Baru's book reveals, it's replete with examples and anecdotes of Manmohan Singh taking decisions on his own, often against the advice of his advisors and other ministers, on matters involving governmental authority.
That's right.
Whereas the Congress president took decisions on political matters, including certain key political appointments. I see no particular difficulty with this division, and by and large, everyone believes it worked very well, which is why we were re-elected in 2009.
But do you believe
with a larger majority?
Yes, but do you believe this duality of power or the dual power that rests with 2 people, one outside the government, one within, is a successful model? Because 5 years later, that model doesn't seem to be successful, because Mr. Baru in his book also says that files went to Sonia Gandhi for her to see before they went to the Prime Minister.
That's not true. It's been completely and flatly denied. He claims that there were consultations about files. I don't think even he claims that any files ever left the PMO. We can assure you that no such thing has happened. It would be a violation of the Official Secrets Act, and we would not permit it to happen. The Prime Minister would not permit it to happen.
But do you believe this duality of power, these two power centers, is a model to go by? It worked for the first 5 years perhaps, but in the next 5 years it did not.
Look, if it worked well enough to give the country record levels of growth and the party a magnificent re-election, then where is the flaw in the model? What happened after 2009 relates to events which had nothing to do with the separation of power. It had to do, first of all, with the global economic crisis, which inevitably would have hit any government in office at that time and hit us too. And it had to do with the, let's put it bluntly, the nationwide uproar over corruption, beginning with the CAG report in October 2010.
That's right.
On 2G, and then thereafter downhill, 2G, Coalgate, the Anna Hazare movement, and the whole capturing of the media space by the anti-corruption movement. All of that suddenly changed the perception of the government. It had nothing to do, it seems to me, with the division of responsibility between the political power and the governmental authority, which continued to work.
You've just come back from Kerala, and there have been quotes and then unquotes and then denials and then confirmations about Mr. Anthony saying something and other Congress leaders also talking about it. If it were to come to keep the BJP out of power, to what extent will the Congress party go? Will you be willing to support a third front government? Because the Congress seemingly talks about protecting the heart of this country. In that situation,
look, I think we do believe that there is an overriding national interest in preserving the idea of India. And the idea of India as a plural society is, frankly, in keeping with our civilizational heritage of 3,000 years as a land that has welcomed people of all sorts of differences and diversities and absorbed them within this common mass. Hinduism, I'm a believing and practicing Hindu, has always taken that attitude to other faiths and other forms of belief, which is why we have such a multiplicity of forms of worship. And therefore, to have this very un-Hindu approach in the garb of Hindutva, trying in fact to promote bigotry, intolerance and dislike of the other, this is something which to our mind militates against the fundamental idea of Indian civilization, as well as indeed of the constitutional principles on which our nation has been built. I know you're going to say, look, of course,
Dr.
Mr.
Tharoor,
Vajpayee...
you're a wordsmith, and I'm not doubting that for a moment. Answer my question first. Will the Congress be willing to support a third front government to keep this bigotry out of the system?
I think we will do what it takes. Now, what will it take depends on the ultimate numbers. There's absolutely no point for anyone in the Congress sitting and saying we'll do this or we'll do that when we don't know what we're talking about in terms of the strengths of the regional parties. Ultimately, if you look at the last 20-odd years' elections, the BJP and the Congress have tended to divide about 300 seats amongst themselves.
That's right.
And about 240 seats have gone to a motley crew of regional parties. And those regional parties include many pairings that can't stand each other and won't work with each other. So you're not expecting to see the two protagonists in UP in the same government. You're not expecting to see Trinamool on the left in the same government. You're not expecting to see Madam Jayalalitha and the DMK in the same government, and so on. So ultimately, for any meaningful conversation about supporting another government or accepting the support of another government or forming a larger entity, everything depends on numbers that none of us has now, so let's not go down that.
Okay, I'm going to come back to my last few questions and come back to the campaign. Many political observers and people who've tracked electoral politics for decades now believe that this is one election that will go down in history as really hitting rock bottom when it comes to making personal attacks, when it comes to the discourse getting very vitiated. The question that I want to ask you is that in this personalized attack, do you believe Rahul Gandhi was right in raking up Narendra Modi's marriage issue?
Well, look, let me put it this way. I myself have just been through the most vicious, vile campaign in Trivandrum, where both the left and the BJP, having no answer to my development work, my presence in the constituency, my contributions to Trivandrum in the last 5 years, had instead chosen to mount their entire campaign on this vicious allegation that I had harmed and indeed murdered my late wife.
I ask you this question because you've been at the receiving end of this.
And they did so in violation of the Election Code of Conduct.
Right. Yes.
We in the Congress Party respect the Election Code of Conduct. Not only did I not respond in kind, I believe at the national level the Congress Party has been very careful. What Rahul Gandhi said should not be seen as a personal issue about his wife. He was not focusing on the wife, he was focusing on the misrepresentation in the election affidavits. And his argument was, shouldn't the Election Commission be looking at Mr. Modi, after all, has fought 5 elections before this, in which he hasn't admitted to a wife.
He's left the column blank. He's left the column blank because the Election Commission had never wanted that to be filled. Now there is a mandate that you cannot leave a column blank.
So it's possible that the Election Commission can turn around and say this is not such a big deal after all. But for a political party to highlight this fact being there, I frankly don't see any problem. In fact, I'm facing a complaint in my constituency that I didn't list the assets of my wife, and my poor wife passed away 3 months before the elections. So why should I? I mean, how can I list the assets of somebody who's not there? But I'm just saying, there are complaints made to the Election Commission. Let the Election Commission rule on it. We are within our rights to draw attention to it. But you will notice we have not gone on beating the tom-toms about it, nor have we gone on a personal basis for more than the few hours or maybe the one day that this issue was brought up. That was it.
You're the second most followed politician in India on social media, and yet if you see the campaign against your party, it is almost vicious, almost vitriolic, if I may. Why is it that social media or people on social media are so against the Congress and so pro Mr. Modi?
Because they're not people, they're BJP trolls, BJP vanguards, BJP platoons of people who are paid to sit there and do nothing but abuse the rest of us. I've seen the change, for example, in Twitter. Since I began 2009, the first couple of years, you basically spent your time engaging with real people. Yes, some of them were BJP sympathizers,
right.
Including the fellow who asked about cattle class was a BJP, right. Well-known BJP journalist. But the fact is that was all right. You knew some were there, some were not. But for the most part, these were regular folks like you and me. You might meet in a living room. Instead, you were meeting on social media. Today, I no longer enjoy opening up the notifications, as they're called, the mentions in which I'm tagged, because 95% of them are just orchestrated abuse, nastiness and viciousness from the BJP's paid army of hacks. And it's a sad abuse of social media that dilutes its appeal and its effectiveness. And because it's so much more difficult to do it in quite that extreme way in Facebook, they haven't yet managed to reduce the appeal of Facebook to that point. But I think Twitter's growth in India is definitely being affected by the extent to which you have this complete takeover of the social media political space, maybe not the other spaces, but the political space by these paid hacks.
I buy your point about very motivated, misled, whatever campaign on social media, particularly Twitter. The question that I want to ask you is that social media has become very important as far as perception building is concerned, be it on Facebook, be it on Twitter. Why is it that the Congress party has not picked up a lesson from people like yourselves? Your party lagged in latching on to this bandwagon. Did you underestimate the power of social media at one extent?
Well, I didn't.
I mean your party.
I was one of the first on it, and I think initially there was a lot of interest. I remember when I first crossed 10,000 followers, a lot of very senior people said to me, 10,000 followers, my gosh, we'd love to have an audience of 10,000. How do you do this? Tell me. But of course, the extremely sort of, shall we say, overwhelmingly negative reaction by mainstream media to my reaching over their heads and reaching people directly led to a series of so-called controversies, all of which were totally artificial, but which immediately had the effect of frightening off the very people who had asked me how to get on Twitter, backed off and didn't go on Twitter. Right. The Congress, therefore, took a little longer to recover from that, whereas the BJP was indeed, within a year, the party whose president had said too much tweeting can lead to quitting.
That's
Mr.
right.
Venkaiah Naidu's one-liner, that party was actually much quicker off the mark. And of course, they were also being advised by public relations consultancies abroad that they were paying handsome fees to, who told them how it was being used effectively in the Western world and so on. And that's how they managed to go into it. We have since caught up. I think that if you look at what we've got there, whether it's the Congress Party's own handle, the Youth Congress's handle, the handles of individual Congress leaders, we are now out there, except for the fact that we don't do systematic abusive trolling, and we don't keep an employed army of hundreds of people throughout the country to do nothing but vilify others. Apart from that, we are out there in strength, and you'll see that every time there is a nasty hashtag trending against us, we manage to get a witty one trending against them.
How much of the contribution is coming from the Twitter handle right here in this office?
Much less than perhaps should be there. I enjoy retweeting some Congress things. My problem is I've been very busy ever since the Congress Party has been has been big on social media. I've been a minister, so I've had a very demanding job. And I devote less and less time to my own tweeting, let alone to the parties. But certainly, I've had lots of conversations with people like Ajay Markan, Dipinder Huda and others who are active in the social media space. And I've always been available to retweet and amplify the party's message or the message of individual ministers, whether it's Chidambaram's hangout or Mr. Petroda's hangout and so on.
Right.
I've been able to get them a larger audience by simply retweeting these things. And I consider myself duty-bound as well as somebody happy to do it, to actually help amplify the party's voice in the social media space.
We wish you all the very best with your electoral outcome. Now you're done with the campaign, and we also wish you some rest in the interim. Thank you very much for talking to us.
I need it before the results. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.